All right, we're live. We're waiting on a few. Looks like we're gonna have a special guest coming in as soon as she can get here. All-time favorite All-Star team reigning woman. But check this out. A lot of people don't know your face. Okay, so tell them who you are and where you are and what makes you awesome. I'm even trying to remember how we met.
My name is Imogen B. I'm from New York City, migrated to Las Vegas, currently in Medellin, Colombia. What makes me awesome is I refuse to fail and keep trying. There's no such thing as loses, only slight change of wins, and that's with an IN and a DS.
Like change of wind. Clever, aren't you? I thought I was the writer.
Yeah, so I'm currently here in Colombia, expat, relocated out of the United States. We met I would say I've been in Colombia 6 months, so we'll say about a year
Yeah.
ago. About a year ago, I
Cool.
was looking to speaking to move to Sao Paulo, about the Alpha City, so probably about a little bit over a year.
Yeah. Now, here's something interesting. You just used the phrase, you said Alpha City, and I always thought that meant capital city. But explain to them when you say, you want to move to an Alpha City. Tell them what that means.
Uh, in Alpha City, when it depends clearly on trade, the economy depends on trade, not art of tongue. So just because you have a fancy language does not mean that you're going to survive in this city. It's about instinct. It's about keeping up with the winds and the changes, the unpredictableness, and it's basically chess. So, Sao Paulo's chess. If you can make it, you will. But it's also about the move that you can, because there's only two ways to kind of. It's a real game. So mixing an Alpha City.
There's an element of you can win big or lose big in an Alpha City.
Right. You have to start big if you plan on losing.
Go big or go home.
Go big or go home.
Well, so get this. I want to tell you a story that started the other night. And it was mulling over in my mind, and I wanted to talk to a few people about this, with this, kind of get some different perspectives. I was with a bunch of friends, and the end of the meal came, and everybody takes out their plastic. Now the waiter asks me, debit or credit? I said, debit. And he said, debit? And I said, yes. Now, this is a word that's the same in Portuguese and English. And he was surprised that I wasn't using credit. And a friend of mine says, oh, that's unusual. Most people use the credit. And I said, I'd never use credit. Credit cards are a horrible idea. And that's when things changed. And he looked at me, he says, well, that's a pretty broad statement. I don't think that's true at all. And I said, well, I'm coming at it not from just a layman's perspective, but I'm coming at it as somebody who worked as a financial professional for 9 years. And it taught me very young that credit cards are consistently going to be a Faustian bargain in which you shake hands with evil under the condition that he doesn't bite you today, but he will. And that's when things got kind of awkward. And it was interesting because it was after a good meal and everybody had fun. And he decided to go into a different conversation. Now, this is somebody I know. I don't like to have disagreements with people I don't know. I only argue with people that I do know. Strangers, that can go wrong. So I just try to keep it to people that are worth having that kind of discussion with. So he went on to talk to me about how, using a credit card under the right situation can be a good thing. And you can use credit card miles and points. And he also told me about an uncle who taught him how to use credit cards, about how you can leverage them and things of that nature. And I said, well, I agree that perhaps your uncle was telling you the truth. However, your uncle is the rare exception. I'm coming at it from a layman's point of view, the point of view from the everyman, and more importantly, the point of view from the high, middle, and low income earners that sat across my desk for many years, having to nearly fight them when I would say, if someone became my client, that in my goal in a year or two, we have no credit cards left. I lost clients because of that. But at the same time, I saw what happens because, well, let me stop here. What is your take on where we went so far?
On credit cards and debit cards?
Credit cards and debt and credit as opposed to any other form of payment. Credit as opposed
I do believe it depends on where you're located in the world. Being that I've been in Colombia, credit, debit is also a foreign word here. because everything is done in quotas. So being that
What is
the quotas and payments, several payments,
Ah,
you're able to pay things, one payment, two payments, three payments. I think the max is 8. Whether it's something 50 cents or something $3,000, or whatever the number may be. I want to put a number on it. And I thought that was very interesting because when I first got here, everything I did would, they would say quota. I was thinking that they was mentioning a receipt. So I would say uno. So it would go through it. First couple times I didn't pay no mind, I knew I got stares. I thought it was because I was using, again, a credit card. One time, somebody goes all in one charge, and I was interesting. I was like, what do you mean all in one charge? Because I did say debit. And they said, nobody in Colombia pays everything at one time. I said, interesting. So y'all put everything on payments and credit cards? Doesn't that create debt? And then I started realizing as I was down here learning the culture, being the fact that I'm from a country with customs, not culture, I realized if I was from here, I can understand how that's the only way that they would use things because that's the way that they were taught. So, that is a safety net for them. For us, we were taught that it is a credential for traveling. I started to actually utilize my credit more than my debit since I've been here, only because I realized I can actually build more points and I can benefit from my credit card doing things on 3 months quotas. I don't have to spend everything up front. It adds leverage to my points, being the fact that as long as I know that the payment is going to be reoccurring, so I already have it there, then it works. But if it's the only substance of working and you have no idea of financial literacy, then I do feel like that could be a problem, as you say, from layman's terms. Most credit cards give you a 0% interest rate every 12 months. So I tend, on my 10th month, I transfer my balance to another credit card. You never close your credit cards, of course, but I transfer from my balance, so I'm always paying even. When I travel internationally, this is my first time. I do have my American Express, which is not taken around the world most of the time, but the one thing it does secure is healthcare around the world. So it may not, whether the car is activated or not activated, you are allowed to get international healthcare because that is a premium that comes with American Express. It may not cover every charge, but your health is always covered. So having a credit card for that issue, especially for me being internationally, I do feel like the debt is worth it. Depends on what part of the aspect. If it's health, then I'll take the debt and worry about it later. If it's monetary items and material items, then I'm not looking to ruin my future.
So let me ask you this. Are you saying, and I want to try to understand your situation, you said American Express gives you health protection. Does that mean, and by the way, we need to come back and talk about culture versus customs another day. We need to do that. Are you telling me that you can simply use it to pay for medical attention, or are you saying that there's medical attention built into the card?
It's built into the card.
Okay. Now, the reason I ask you that is because that's what I thought, but I wanted to be clear. Are you completely aware of two things? One, do you know what your limits are?
Yes.
Okay. And have you compared those limits to whether or not it's reimbursement and the cost of healthcare in the country you're in?
No, I don't, because my credit card is something that I pay for 12 months.
Yeah.
So
now, this is where it gets sticky. I encourage you to compare that iron triangle. I want you to look at whether or not it's reimbursement and whether or not that medical care comes off of your card and you're simply paid back for it later, or whether or not they charge you for it later as a separate fee, because this is one of the clever little tricks that credit cards play. Two, I want you to compare that with the cost of medical attention in the country you're in. One of the most interesting things about being an American is we're not used to having decent healthcare or even crappy healthcare for free. Whereas every place else in the world, I know certainly where you are and where I am, a person can get decent medical health care publicly, and if you want to pay for something fancy, you can.
Right.
And the third part of that iron triangle is whether or not the cost of the card is worth it. Now, the reason, and by the way, I'm using you as a stand-in for the everyman. You know I'm not attacking you.
No, I know.
Most people will never, and here's how it works. Most people don't even know you should ask those questions. Most people can't even do the math behind those questions to figure out whether it's a good idea. And this is why credit cards win. You'd never win with a credit card because the way the system works is it will bite you. If you're lucky, it'll bite you early. In your early 20s, maybe you'll make a small mistake. But I've seen people because I'll tell you how the human mind works with credit cards, and I say this as someone who, oh, hey, you know what, RJ, do you want to jump in with us, RJ? This is something that's definitely in your wheelhouse. If you want to come in, you're more than welcome. Let me know, and I'll send you the link right now, RJ. RJ is a financial pro as well. He likes to talk about money. Is my favorite subject. People on my channel know I love money. Money is what purchased my freedom, and I'm not rich. I always tell them this little caveat. I'm not rich. I'm not even well off. I just look like it because I have no debt. But those 3 points, I want you to do your homework, and I'm not asking you to tell me. I'm saying if you want help understanding it, I can help you. But if you want to keep it to yourself, that's fine. But this is how credit cards work. Credit cards trick you into believing that they're going to be there for you. Most people don't realize that credit cards are taken away. First of all, depending on how long you've had it, if they haven't made a profit on you, they'll take your credit card away because it's a privilege, not a right. I have had clients in my office showing me letters about how I got them into this and be angry that I put them in a position for their credit card companies to realize they're no longer using it and say, we're turning it off. And I say, you don't need those training wheels anymore. I've taught you the value of saving, and more importantly, the value of paying for something all at once. Because what we do with credit cards, and then after this point, I'm going to stop. If someone makes, let's call it $1,000 a month, and he's got a credit card of $300, the way the human mind works is it tells you, I have $1,300 every month. Now, it might not work that way the first month or the second month, but eventually you get comfortable with it. And suddenly that credit card that might have been there for an emergency before, which you should count on your savings for emergencies, not credit, all of a sudden it becomes part of your normal spending habit. And that's how they win. They win by increasing your credit limit slowly but surely. They win because they know that most people never ask where the candy comes from until it's time to pay. Your thoughts?
I agree with you when it comes to the 80% of the world who is layman. Most people, when they apply for credit cards, don't apply. They don't even know. They think Discover, Visa, Master, American. They think it's all the same thing. So they don't know which franchise open for which. They don't understand why interest rates are the way they are or percentages are the way they are. Most people use their credit cards for all purchases instead of using it per purchase. See, I have one. I only pay rent online, or my mortgage is online. I have one particular card that's just for that. There's never been another charge on that card for anything else. I have one just for medical reasons. My Amex is, is a little under 500. The damages per month to maintain the account open. It's not my first go-to for medical because my wife is military in Colombia, so I do get pretty decent medical. Versus they offer, South America offers great medical. But when it comes to not being able to speak the language and having something traumatized to you, I don't think I'm able. At that moment, I want to be ready. I don't want to scan. And when you tend to get into certain things, they're going to do their specialty. They're not going to do what you're accustomed to. They're going to do their specialty. So I don't think it should be your forefront. A credit card should never be your forefront. Paying for things all the way up front all the time, it depends on what it is. I'm not technically believe in paying for everything all at once. I do believe you should pay at least 75% of the purchase. But it's still a job.
So my question is, where do you get that?
Which one?
That 75% number.
You should, if you're going to use a credit card, you should leave some type of debt. It is a company at the end of the day.
Now, I come at it from a completely different point of view, but it's been my life experience and the experience of my clients. No one has ever gone broke paying for everything that they want up front.
No, but they don't have things left for things that they may need.
What paying for things up front teaches you is to itemize your bills, to understand what you do need and what you don't need, and you become a better consumer.
That's one way to look at it. That's one way to look at it.
You spend very differently when you take.
From New York, so I have to. I sell New York real estate, so okay. Escrows and reconstruction, a lot of 1099 contracts. You're not going to get everything up front.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I'm not talking about business. I'm talking about, and we can talk business at a different time. Right now,
you're talking about using credit card for personal.
The average person with a credit card with his name on it
is using it for everything.
Yes, or using it for anything, because I have yet to find somebody who can give me a reasonable reason to say, you know what, this is why we should use.
I have 12.
What'd you say?
I have 12. I've had my American Express probably 6 years. I've had my Navy Federal since I was like 15. I mean, I have a great credit score. This is what allows me to live in Colombia for almost next to nothing because I don't need to use my cash up front. I reserve my cash. I pay my credit card companies because they're loyal. See, I can dispute that. I can't dispute once it's in your bank.
You know what? I just sent you an email, RJ. Check your email. And
I definitely,
hey,
I definitely, but but then again, I feel like it's from mindset of what part of the world you're from. See, because being from a financial capital, and I also feel like Sao Paulo is pretty good at this too, being the fact that Brazil has a very high debt around the world, but that's a very strong economy when it comes per capita in that particular region. So they're smart with their money. Maybe the rest of the country isn't so well knowledgeable of how to use credit cards. But it is a business. You know, if anybody's robbing you, it's going to be that 1% interest rate on your bank versus that.
Now we're using a logical fallacy called the what about game. Well, what about your bank and what about this? Let's keep it to the credit card. This is what I will say to you. You said something, my heart stopped and my blood turned cold when you told me you had 12.
Yes.
Now, I would tell you, and again, I no longer hold any financial licenses. I can only give you the benefit of someone who learned how money works and was able to semi-retire and walk away from the game at 37 years old. Run. Take all of them to a bonfire, throw them in, and pee on them. Because here's the thing. And watch, this is how the game works. Ready? How old are you right now?
31.
31 years old. You are still 50 years of life if you stay healthy. I promise that if you keep juggling those credit cards, one of them will fall. And remember, with the way America works, it only takes one.
What do you mean one of them will fall? I don't spend more than 50% of my debt. I don't most of my money is in my bank. My credit cards, you have to use them to keep them open, but I don't use them as cash. I do know the difference between credit, debit, and cash and signature, because all three, the signature works on its own credibility. So I definitely know the difference when it comes to that. Like, I don't use my credit cards companies just to be using them, but I use them because it is a company. So I mean, I do use them maybe once a year if I need to, just to keep the account open, something small, like basically to renew my laptop. I'm not going to pay cash. Even though I want to keep my credit card open, so I would renew it and then pay it. Because what happens, economies fall, and that's fact. And when an economy falls, that goes to currency too. And I've watched, for example,
if the economy falls, your credit cards are going to be worthless.
No, that's only if your credit cards are tied into all your banks or one thing. That's what I'm saying. Your credit cards are not your economy. If your economy falls, your money may be worthless, but your charges you can still do. You still have to pay that back somehow.
I say this with, and if I look at it this way. It's my responsibility to pull up this information, but I don't want to start playing the Google game. You have a slight misunderstanding of what it means when an economy collapses and what it means when a currency falls. If a currency falls, your credit cards are worthless because credit cards only represent the faith in which people can pay that credit back or debt which is negotiable around the world. If an economy falls, your credit cards will be worth less than nothing. But I don't want to get into an economy lesson. That's what we're going to have Brother Jeremy come back. Wait a minute, RJ, are you with me?
Hey, peace, brother. I'm here. How we doing?
Life is good. Life is good. I don't get to see you in a clever jacket and ascot.
Only that ascot that you see right there. I'm gonna be straight up with you. I'm just leaving this here gym, and so yeah, I'm dressed down. I'm dressed down big time right now.
Well, first of all, shout out and a lot of credit for just coming from the gym. That's a beautiful feeling.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get like you, brother. I'm trying to get like you.
You've been listening for a while. Tell me your thoughts.
Absolutely. I must say I agree a lot with Brother Imagine. I pronounced it correctly, right?
Imogen, yes, but yes.
Imogen, excuse me. All right. So yeah, I agree with him because Brother Yusef, I mean, you know, there, as we spoken about previously, there's no one size fit all, right? So I'm not sure what this brother's ultimate goal is, but I play with credit a lot as well. He being able to have a great personal credit score, so that way we can ultimately leverage that for excellent business credit, so we can get higher lines of credit, so that way we can go into greater business ventures. Yes, true enough, it creates debt. Yes, true enough, you have an obligation, but it all depends on what one's attempting to do. I was having this conversation with Ramil Amir yesterday, and he lives a minimalist lifestyle, and he's about cash, and I think it just depends on what the individual chooses to do. I personally like the idea of, and I always try to educate my clients on, at the very minimum, particularly if they're interested in business or they're wanting to go for the best rates possible, to play this whole credit game. There's loopholes in it. He said something very profound, even though it's basic, but it's very profound. He said I can dispute it. That means a lot. That means a lot, because I mean, I'm just gonna go on the record and say it. I mean, with me being in credit restoration, I don't ask clients, hey, is it yours? Unless I'm talking about an inquiry or something like that, and I don't want to shut the account down by going after that inquiry. Now that goes back to what you just mentioned, as far as how an account can get closed at any given time. If you're a victim of identity theft or something along those lines, or if there's some questionable behavior occurring.
They also get closed when you learn not to use them. Credit card companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now for me, I would like to ultimately be able to, play with some M's. Just realistically, that's ultimately one thing that I would like to do. You look at people like Robert Kiyosaki and all of them, these people that purposely go out here and get these tremendous amounts of lines of credit. I think he had hundreds of millions of dollars. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe later on the guy filed bankruptcy, and I'm pretty sure that was a strategy. I won't get into that right now. And only to then turn right around, leverage that, and then flip it. I mean, Brother Yusef, that is beautiful. It sounds grimy, we know, but hey, they're playing with us. That's an opportunity to play with them. I mean, so that's my thing. We know.
If a little bit, piggyback on that. Okay.
Sure, please. I'll mute up.
There's an old saying, you don't get nothing unless there's skin in the game. Because you only get how much skin you put in the game. Because the skin you're not going to get back. So, my president says, I'm not going to mention his name, of course I'm wealthy. I made a fortune off debt. What I can spend is what I can make. When I came down here and I wanted a condo, now your bank account, when you do a bank statement, a bank inquiry, it has all those little miscellaneous charges and every little thing, your whole entire personal information when you want to acquire for something, right? So then that one lump sum comes out, it drops. Correct? It doesn't say that you're worth that, because now you're doing your direct personal account. If I take it and I have the money in my bank account, yes, I could pay it up front, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on that card. Why? Because I'm going to have two backings. I'm not just going to have my bank. I'm going to have the credit card backing as well, just in case I need to dispute it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make payments. I'm going to pay it off. Let's say it's supposed to be paid off in a year. I'll pay it off in 3 months. I'll make an advance payment. Because once I get the credit card statement for the 12 months, that's my net worth. My net worth isn't what's in my bank account. My net worth is what my credit line is.
Mo, could you mute yourself from eating cereal?
Oh, is it too loud? Sorry.
Really, is it too loud?
My stomach waits for no man.
You come on my show behaving like a savage.
Okay, let us know that we all around.
You invited me. You knew what to expect.
Okay. I'm smoking a cigarette. Okay. This is so real.
I feel like, Mo, I feel like I'm being assaulted by the Axis powers on both sides. Do I have a friend in this? I mean, am I the only one screaming against the wind, saying if we avoid the debt credit card game and personal finance in general, you're safer and better off? The only light I have shining into this dark hallway is that it allowed me to get out of the game early. But I found where I thought I would have an ally in RJ. He came off the top rope with the ultimate betrayal, and it was.
AMX just sent me a text message as we're talking. That's so funny. AMX literally just sent me a text message telling me I have
I actually agree with you. I think that limiting your amount of credit is always a smart choice. Everyone has these lofty ideals of like, I'm going to absolutely pay this down in 3 months. But most people don't do that, which is why so many people have massive amounts of credit card debt. Furthermore, people often think of credit card debt as a part of your net worth, but it's really a liability. And if you have too much credit on the books and not enough cash flow, you really are in the red. And I think that people think that it's black, and that's not the same thing. And we see that with large corporations that have huge amounts of debt that they're trying to pass off. We see that with large amounts of with individuals that have a lot of things, but those things aren't really theirs because they're bought by credit. And I'm going to go back to your example of when you talked about Trump. I think that's what you meant, the president that bought debt. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes, meeting as I was saying how what you was talking about with the leveraging, how you had to leverage it to be able to make the ROI back on it.
Well, if you're doing something like doing a margin call for stocks and it comes through, it's such an awesome thing. But if it doesn't come through, you're in debt for more money than you have in it. And I would not do anything in the same way as our current president, considering his own ridiculously poor track record of business. He started off with made, and he's found a way to make himself become bankrupt multiple times. And so I wouldn't take any advice that he does. And also, that's not the situation that many people find themselves in. Most people are not going to start off life with $1 million to try and make money and make moves with. Most people are going to start off either broke or just middle class if you're lucky. So those are not good tips.
Do you feel that middle class is something from one's point of view? No. I can't hear you, Watt, for some reason. Me either.
Okay. You said is middle class a point of view? Middle class is about as objective as it gets. Let me give you 2 metrics that I worked with successfully with my clients that they were not middle class, and it has nothing to do with how much money you earn. You ready? Have you taken your expenses every month? That includes diapers, milk, food, movies, whatever you spend money on, add it all up, and can you say you have that much money times 6 in the bank? And that includes everything you do for fun. That doesn't just mean my bills and if I have to make the minimum. First, can you say that all of that is in the bank for 6 months ahead? Second, are you able to consistently put away 20% of your income if you have no children and 10% of your income if you do? If you're able to consistently do those things, you can call yourself middle class.
My mom told me you only spend 1/3 of your income on your household and you save 20%. So I've only anything that I buy, I only spend 1/3 of income when I go to rent it. I don't give a damn how much.
Hold on, stop the show. You got babies crying here. Did I miss something important?
I got a daughter and a wife, but I only spend 1/3 of my income on my household. I won't go over 1/3 of my income because I have to worry about my health to provide for that income. So if I'm spending 50% on my household, what am I going to leave for my health? My health is more important. I can always go to Home Depot and buy a brick and a door.
Let me go what Anderson said. He said, during my separation divorce in 2015, my credit tanked to 465 FICO. In September of 2015, I rebuilt it with 2 secured credit cards, Wells Fargo and U.S. Bank Platinum Visa. Took a hiatus for 3 years. Now I'm at 782 FICO. And he said, I don't churn. I systematically open long-term credit card account, keep the credit, change my life at 46, and I have more leverage and get to travel using my miles, Amex, Delta, Planet, etc. Great. Now, here's my question. Will those cards help you if you have another financial setback? The question I have is if you already know what it's like to take a bullet in the knee in the form of divorce, you know that divorce is not the only financial hurdle that we'll have to get through in life if that's what yours was. Didn't that teach us better than having cash reserve? Didn't that teach us not to depend on credit cards? Because you had to take a three months away from the game to do what? In that 3 years, you learned to live without your credit cards anyway, and then you stuck your head right back in the lion's mouth.
You should live. I don't think your credit cards is something you should live by. I feel like it's almost like a pair of sunglasses. It's just extra for your son. I mean, your eyes can see, but if you're going to use your sunglasses inside, outside for everything else, then, I mean, it's an accessory. It's not a cell. And I feel like a lot of people get it mixed up. I just feel like it's, first of all, there's 4 levels to financial literacy. It's not just 3. And I feel like that's where the signature is also a form of payment. But whether you apply it for a credit card, you put it on the bank, that's also applied payment. That says your representation. That means you were there. That's payment. That's physical payment. That's what they're going to persecute you. And then the documentation is honorary payment, right? And then liability is the action, right? And the responsibility is the whole package. Correct?
No,
So
don't
walk into a multi-billion-dollar company, which is a credit card company, that supplies banks with their money because they have more cash on hand than a bank does, and only read the first 2 pages instead of the 72 pages of why the company was started, because the credit card company is just like every other company, has a basis and has to follow a procedure.
Wait. No, wait. Did you just say the credit card companies have to follow a basis and a procedure?
No, I'm saying they're just like every company. They have a basis and they have to follow a procedure. If you don't want to follow up with making sure that they keep up with the procedure because you feel like they're a multi-billion-dollar business, then that says on you. But guess what? The power and the pen can talk for you.
But I agree with what you said in the perfect world. But at what point in American history has the average consumer had any ability to enforce the law against a major corporation?
The problem, I think, is the average consumer went to the credit card company because they were broke. That was the first mistake.
Well, here's
no, that's not what happened.
Here's the thing.
When they don't have money, I feel like they tend to figure out how they can charge it.
No, it comes down to being properly educated at the end of the day.
Financial literacy is important, but what I will say to you is we have learned in our lifetime that the federal government will bend the rules to screw common working class people like you and make sure that the banks and the big business don't have to follow the rules.
I don't
Why
believe
are you
that.
still believing that?
You don't believe that?
No.
You don't believe that we live in a corporatocracy where the corporations make rules and they're no different than like large organized crime schemes, except that they have government backings and lackeys to do their business as opposed to like people that were just like mobsters. Another thing that's important is you have to realize that consumers didn't necessarily go to be like, hey, can you guys sell us something that allows us to take a little bit of money today and then pay back large amounts of money later? That was a result of the working class not being able to afford new luxuries as the United States kind of turned into a new part of capitalism, where like we see like the change of when a single family household couldn't support an entire family. We see large changes in the economic market about how people are able to afford goods and services. And then we have large corporations and things like that need to sell stuff. This wasn't really like credit cards weren't like a solution for the average man to buy things they needed. Credit cards were a solution for large companies to underpay workers and underpay individuals and find ways to still sell their goods and products. And the difference may sound subtle, but it's fundamental in understanding why credit cards and credit in general is kind of predatory.
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
It's definitely predatory, but there's also means like I work with a lot of leasing companies with one of my businesses, and one thing that I noticed with them as they pull together funds and pay commissions or whatever the case may be as it relates to the deal that's been submitted, is that they always score it based on credit from P, which means preferred, all the way down to E, right? And the thing is, when they're doing that, one thing I've always noticed how they structure it. Like, I'm the agent, so on my end it's about the deal submission, but on their end they're like, okay, well, how many of these people that you're submitting are preferred or A or B or C, and how many, and this is the percentage of D or E that we're willing to accept. Preferred is, typically greater. They may say we want 25% of this, 15% of A, 15% of B. But for D and E on a monthly basis, we'll only accept, 5 to 10% deal submission on D and E rated credit. So I'm saying all that to say that while they understand, hey, there's going to be this amount of people that's going to fail. We expect for this many deals to go sideways. The bread and butter up here, the quote unquote responsible lenders, those, this is why we want this percentage of them on a monthly basis. It kind of helps them, wash one, and then furthermore, Yusef, as a brother as a traveling man such as yourself, I'm surprised you don't appreciate credit, man. You understand the beauty of playing.
I agree.
Let me do two things. Hold on. Ready? One, for those who don't know, RJ speaks with some authority. We don't have time necessarily to go into all the stuff that he is and is not. But what I want everybody to do is, I did this article with him a while back called "Money is Everything," right? And as you can see, he's got some letters after his name. After this is over, I want everybody to go back there and take a look at that. We had a great conversation. So that's where his authority comes from. Okay. And the second, as a traveling man, one of the things I've learned traveling the world is that credit is not universal. One of the freedoms that I have to be able to basically live, I tell people like this: in a different age, I would have thrown my sword over my back and wandered the earth. In an age before that or after that, I would have strapped a rifle to my hip or a pistol to my hip and wandered it. Now I can throw my laptop in my bag and wander the earth, and I have a currency that I understand will be good anywhere. I can have cash. My ability to walk into any situation and not owe anyone anything allows me a flexibility in A, being able to have the clients that I want, and more importantly, say no to the ones I don't. But B, more importantly, be able to make foolish decisions. I can invest in things, I can lose money, I can gain money. But because I owe no one anything, I'm completely free. At a point, and this is the thing we're talking about, I have to, and thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the compliment, Brother Anderson. Oh, what the?
Hold on, man. I don't know what's going on, but
okay, mute yourself until you can. There you go.
I got it.
So here's where we are. I have to, and I feel like I'm the curmudgeonly old uncle now because I have insight that goes past my 42 years. When you work with people in direct finance and financial professional for 9 years, and you sit across from people who had the same ideas that you do, and you find every now and then one of them works out in the long run. But the stunning and overwhelming majority, by the time they hit middle age, at earliest, it usually comes later, they figure out that credit was never a good idea. But the game is designed to suck you in and convince you they're your friend. There are hundreds of billions of dollars spent every year trying to convince everyone watching this right now that credit is what elite people use. No, it's not. Rich people get rich by not owing anybody anything, by being able to negotiate in cash in one lump sum the price of anything. You ask about my being able to travel the earth. I'll tell you a secret to how I get apartments anywhere in the world, right? I've done this in multiple countries. I'll see an apartment that I like, and I'll say, hey, how much? Okay, well, $1,400 a month. I could do that, or we could cut it to 12, and I can just give you 6 months in advance. And normally they just start sweating and say, what, 6 months in advance? And boom, it's cheaper. You can do it with cars, television, houses, business deals, but people don't want to understand that owing credit means you can't be as flexible with your cash. I'm not talking about billion-dollar corporations. I'm talking about
a billionaire to be flexible with your credit. What should be with your credit? Being able to pay 6 months is just being able to show what you can pull out your pocket.
Right.
But that's not credit. That's real money. And I think that's a big thing that Watt's trying to say. If we go back to like your thing of, let me one second. You were talking about like Trump earlier. There was like a famous story about.
Mo, stop.
Okay.
Let Emma Jen
finish.
The whole thing is this. First of all, no business is going to, no successful company is going to start a company without at least aiming for a 75% success rate. So whatever you're going to purchase is like sugar. Okay, so that's why it's called a company. So you're trying to have a success rate. So it has to be something with everything in your business plan, whatever you're selling. Secondly, I feel like credit can be a form of cash if you know how to use it, or it could be a form of debt if you don't know how to use it.
Yep.
So I can like you're saying, I walked in and paid 6 months. I always pay 6 months on my leases. One, I don't technically protect to walk into a lease. Because if I walk into a lease, it means the unit that I'm planning on renting is already in debt anyway. That's why it's for rent. Secondly, if I'm going to be able to negotiate it 6 to 8 months, you can also if you may have paid $200 less. I think it's the other mic. Somebody's has the bigger mic. I think You may, okay, so if I walk in and I negotiate, you said the rent is 1,400, you negotiate down to 1,200, so you're paying 6 months advance. Who said that you didn't do a cash advance and just pay an extra 10% on your credit card because you got the money up front? I mean, a discount is a discount, right?
Well, let me do this. I'm going to pass it to Mo, but in between, I'm going to say two quick things. One, we got to say hello to two people who just decided to join us. I want to say, you two can introduce yourself. Ladies first. You've got an echo going. Tell me the woman.
I have an echo? Okay, hold on a second. Is this better?
Because when I talk, I hear it through your mic.
Is this better?
No, it's not. It's not you speaking. It's that I hear my voice coming out of your speaker and back into the microphone. You have earphones.
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, just turn the volume down a little bit on my voice, then perhaps that'll help. But say hello and tell us who you are.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm Raining Woman. It's good to see you. Good to be here. I'm familiar with some of the faces, but I'm just catching on. And this is, of course, another great subject, great quality content. So he just showed my channel. My channel basically is about a woman seeking and taking the path to her higher self and having healthy conversations and dialogues about all things being a woman, relationships, everyday life.
Okay.
Hey, peace, man. Oh, is this Raining Woman?
Yes.
Hey, nice to put. Hey, how you doing, sister? Nice to put the face with the voice. Finally, I remember you back when you used to come on Obsidians. What's going on?
Yes, I do this for Yusef. So I'm kind of blushing right now.
All right, Kyle.
Hey, what's up, y'all? My name Kyle. I met a few of y'all before. This is a good topic because I think a lot of people, they get, some people like credit, some people don't. I mean, me personally, I think credit is good as long as you know how to use it. The majority of people, I think, are just undisciplined and they don't know how to use it. So this is where they mess up. And I think cash is always probably the best. But if you ain't got no cash, if you do not have cash, then credit is the next best thing you can have. So, of course, I think the main thing is most people do not know how to use credit properly. And, I'm still learning myself on a lot of things, but I think that's the main thing with credit. Most people are afraid of it because they may have got into credit card debt or any other type of debt. And then from there, they become very afraid of it. So as long as you know how to use it properly, or as long as you have discipline enough to use it, then I think credit is okay. But everybody has their own preferences. I mean, most of the time I use cash, but sometimes I do use my credit. And I would say on my credit card, I do get good frequent flyer miles. So I got some free trips out of my credit card. So, some people don't, I think most people just don't know how to use it. Once I figured out how to use it, I think, I became a little bit more comfortable with it.
Yeah, my credit card, my AMX gives me 4 days at any international airport. I think it's like 200 airports they have listed.
Let me do this 1 second. Mo has waited patiently, and I want to give him an opportunity to rebut what was said earlier.
Yeah, I think that a big thing to think about when we think about like cash versus credit is if you run out of cash, the least amount of money you can have is exactly $0. And like it reminds me of like an old like Trump adage where he like saw some homeless guy and he's like, look at this guy. Even though he like lives on the street, he still has more money than me with no money because he was negative because he had credit and he had huge credit liabilities. And I think that that's something that people really don't understand is that like having $0 sucks. But having negative dollars owed by a credit card, which is the same thing as having like, because I invest in stocks quite a bit, it's like having a margin call that can be called in any time for money you may not have. I think it's important to understand the difference between being broke and then being super duper broke. And that's what credit cards can get people. There's a reason why we all have like this idea that we're really good at saving money or that we're disciplined and things like that. But My studies in psychology show me that that's absolutely not true. Most people absolutely overestimate how careful they are, how pragmatic they are with finances, which is why the majority of Americans are swimming in credit card debt. You'll always have the one-off story of, I was $1 million in credit card debt, now I'm a billionaire. It's a story because almost no one does that. And that's a reason why most people should stay away from leveraging important things through credit. Because if you don't have the money in cash on hand to do it, it might be a good idea to rethink on how to get that thing done as opposed to reaching for credit. Because credit is not the next best thing to cash. The next best thing if you're out of cash is just to be broke, not owe money for money you don't have at all.
So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is the reason we remember all those great stories about people who made it into retirement years without letting credit burn them is because those situations are so rare.
Yes, and we think it can happen to us, and we always have this mythos about ourselves that we're that exceptional thing, and that we're going to be the one that's going to take all this credit card debt and build a mountain of hotels or whatever that thing is. But reality shows us and statistics show us that's not accurate to how most people live their life.
Do you mind if I ask you how cash was created and what is cash backed by? So if you're saving cash, what do you save to save cash?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Like, what do I save to save cash? I don't know what you mean.
What do you save to have cash?
I don't understand the question either.
He said,
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Yeah.
I guess you take it that I guess he's trying to say like most cash is backed, especially in America nowadays, is most backed by debt. So most cash in America nowadays is not backed by gold anymore. It's backed by debt. So
what do you save to make your cash?
So that's what he's trying to get to the point.
When I go to a different country, I don't worry about the cash. You know what I do? I take a piece of gold and I take the exchange, and then I worry about whatever color piece of paper they're going to give me.
Yeah,
see, the plastic is a resource and the gold is a resource. You see the piece of paper that could be set on fire. You see, the black has the name on it and the gold has the weight. So if I need the piece of paper, the third party, like stuff like,
I think didn't you just say you take gold and gold is exchangeable everywhere in the world?
Not just gold, because gold's the biggest one. Who needs to go for the biggest one? You can take bronze and silver. I do quite well with just silver since that's almost everywhere.
That's fine. That's fine. But what I'm saying is, didn't you just kind of help me make the point that?
No, what I'm saying is, I can never be at zero because I have a piece of silver. I can always walk around with no cash. That's easy. You're saying that, if you have debt because there's no cash in your pocket, then you're worse than having in a red line. No, I could be in the red line because I got a piece of silver. See, once I ain't got no money, you can't get a piece of silver. See, once you have a piece of silver, you can get that piece of paper, which that can get that credit card. But you got to start further behind. If you're going to start at the paper, you're going to be losing already.
Imogen, let me come behind you on that, because that's the awesome thing that I want people to really hone in on. Brother Yusef, you got to at least appreciate this as a businessman. With excellent credit, you're a business just by having excellent credit. I mean, brother, I charge my clients to piggyback off me, okay, and I charge them a decent premium, and then part of that premium goes towards paying the credit card. You know what I mean? So if I have a venture capital one, and then I let them piggyback off that bad boy, it has $20,000 limit, right? It has a decent age on it, and then I may charge them $750. Okay, cool. Portion of that goes towards paying it down, and then the longer they stay on it, I actually charge them a recurring monthly fee, and then thereby receiving a residual and then also paying down the credit card, man. So I mean, you can be a business just by doing that, man. So that's the way I look at it, man. So it's not something that you have to be bogged down with. Go right ahead.
When we talk about businesses, we got to be careful, because I started a multinational editing, copywriting, proofreading business off a laptop. Most of my financially successful friends work in a space that allows them to not have any debt when they start.
But $14.99 to start a website is access to a global world. That can make you international just by paying for a website. I'm international.
Right. You can. But I agree with a website. That's totally right. I have an international business.
I started the Billionaires Club, which is an international. It's 5 million views. It's the largest net worth of wealth online. Started right from Harvard.
Okay.
I just don't understand the what you save question. I don't like, because I really want to answer
artillery and gold, oil, those are the resources that back your cash. And they don't back it formally, meaning as in if you take your dollar, you can get that as an exchange. Meaning as in you need to mentally go get that first to exchange that into cash. If your dollar is high today, it may not be high tomorrow. So you need to, I would rather take my $100 and yes, put it in a Cuban link and then go to Colombia and then exchange it. Because if I take my money, I may get charged cash for cash. I'm not going to get what I want. See, the gold percentage.
But you can't do a trade exchange for gold as you could for cash. Like you can bring cash into a store and purchase things with it. When your cash is gone, you have zero. But also the price of any type of good, like whether it's petroleum, whether it's gold or silver, all of those things are based on the market, and they all have a chance of changing. Not necessarily
cash changes fast. I can guarantee that.
Not variable.
As long as the resources are getting more limited, the prices, the exchange is going to go high. And last time I checked, gold that we're wearing now is reused gold because gold is so limited.
It is, but like that's not.
But are you saying that the price of gold doesn't?
No, it fluctuates.
It does, but the price it fluctuates depending on when you're standing. It doesn't change just because it's in your pocket. And cash change because it's in your pocket. So you can walk into an airport and that gold may change a couple of percentage. It's not going to go by the value of that cash. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like you could, if you take a Colombian emerald in Colombia, it may not be as worth as much in Colombia because guess what? They have free mountain ranges. It's everywhere. You can find it on the street, literally. But if you take it to the United States or you take it to England where the queen only wears Colombian emeralds and blue sapphires because they only come out of Colombia and only Africa and Afghanistan, a sapphire that is, then you ascend the value of it.
But that's variable. That's the definition of something being very variable.
Cash is the variable, is the middle.
So are the.
It's always been. It's never the first form of money. Cash will never be the first form of money. It's never started to be the first form of money, and it will never end being the first form of money.
I'm not trying to like. I'm not trying to like, judge your questions. I just don't understand what you mean. I'm sorry.
I think what he's trying to say is this: like, your money can switch at any time.
So can the price of anything.
I know, so the price can anything, but money switch faster, depending on the country, depending on what the country's economy is like. Because just like, all right, prime example, the euro today could, at the Brit said, it could pretty much drop, it could drop real fast, and that may not be one of the strongest dollars anymore after Brit says go, and the pound and euro may go down. So, I mean, that's what I think he's trying to say. Like, let me compared to the resources, money will change faster depending on the country and the economy and everything. So,
but here's the problem. I think we're getting a little far away from home. I agree. Cash and gold fluctuate, although I will support anyone carrying either one of them. My main issue is that carrying a pocket full of cash, a pocket full of gold or diamonds or sapphires, is something I will advocate. But carrying debt that can be called at any time by a company who has the very clear allegiance of a federal government that will not rule in an individual's favor, that is a mistake to make because it's a tool that's kind of like the Lord of the Rings when they said, well, why don't we use the evil ring against Sauron, saying, you can't use the ring because he made the ring. The same companies that we're looking at as giving us a tool to get, no financial institution is going to help you get out of debt. Let's start from a fundamental principle. Banks, financial institutions, and credit bureaus don't make money by helping you have money. They make money by making you lose money. Their guiding principle is to take money away from you. Anything they give you is a means to that end. Reigning woman, what are you drinking off screen? Are you hitting the bottle off screen? No? We can't hear you. I saw her sneaking off to the side. Okay.
I'm drinking my tea.
She always claims it's tea, but nobody can see it. You see how when I drink water, it's pretty apparent what I'm drinking?
Hey, it could be vodka in there. Come on, Yusef. You don't pour it. It could be vodka in there, G.
I guess if we're playing the what if game.
We need to freeze it to find out.
Hey, thank you for reminding everybody to hit the like button and to share this. You know what? When we were talking about businesses, I almost forgot to do my ritual. And for those of you who have been here, I think, Imogen, this might be the first time you get to see it. I tell people all the time, I don't make money. I'm not a YouTuber in that context, but I'm an editor, copy editor, proofreader. I'm one of the people that people call when you need something done at university level English, when you need a resume written. If you have a book or a paper that needs to be edited to university level English, I encourage everybody to join up with me on LinkedIn to check out my professional profile. And the first thing I tell everyone is don't worry about my resume first. The first thing I want people to look at consistently is going to be what people say about me. I have a lot of great references here. I have a lot of people who understand the level of professionalism that I bring, and that's what you can do to help me. And I tell everybody all the time, share this content. Share it on your Facebook or your LinkedIn or your WhatsApp. I always tell people, share it on your Tinder profile. And then you can just say, hey, if we can't have a conversation, at least it's good after sex, why are we talking? Like, let's have something to talk about after we meet. This will be a great conversation piece because Tinder gets a lot of people. So put this in your profile there too. And that's how I tell people, that's how I promote who and what I am and what I do. But going back to it, that's why I will always get into that issue of I fundamentally believe that we cannot look at credit as stable, because I've seen, again, over the course of my professional career with money, I've seen what happened when people think that credit's going to be there and the bank decides, no, it isn't. When the bank
or
decides,
they raise the interest rates because they're variable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your interest rates are not locked in. A lot of people don't know that. Your interest rates can be changed.
It's a 0% for your first 12 months. That's the policy. After the first 12 months.
I understand, but you understand that they can change it whenever they feel like it. Like
after your first 12 months. After your first 12 months.
Depending on the card, but yeah.
No, not depending on the card. Every one of those institutions has a clause that allows them to change their interest rate, whether you like it or not, or whether or not it's in the first 12 months or 12 hours.
That's why there's a little asterisk by it.
Yeah. But again, here's the thing, right? I'm coming to you from a place where I've seen people who thought that because the credit card company said it must be true, and then they got picked in the sack later when they found out, no, the credit card company has absolute godlike authority over that card. So if they decide your interest rate is now still 50%, you have two options: burn the card or eat that 50%. Most Americans will choose to eat the 50% because they decided that credit card is something they need and deserve.
I mean, me personally, with credit cards or any type of credit, I think it should be used as a emergency or last resort. I mean, that's how I feel about them. Like, it shouldn't be used. Yeah, it shouldn't be like your everyday thing. Like, you shouldn't say, because even when I purchase stuff on it and then pay it off right away. That's what I do. So
yeah, that's a great idea. I agree. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do, and I only do that mainly to get the points so I can fly. So, but most people, I think this is the problem. Most people think, okay, it's like cash. I could use it like on a day-to-day basis, and that's not what it's meant for.
I mean, 7-Eleven, they have McDonald's, they paying car insurance, they paying everything on one credit card.
What, Kyle, let's do this then. I'm going to take your example. One, you said credit cards. You said two things. One about using the points, and you said credit cards shouldn't be used for, I believe you said they should be used for things you can't plan. Or can you give me a few examples of what you think a credit card should be used for?
I mean, emergency. Let's say like.
Kyle, give me your top two emergencies that a credit card should be used for.
Your car breakdown.
Okay. Now let's do it this way.
You need to get that car to get to work. Like, you have no public transportation in your area.
I agree with you. Yes. But here's where I'm going to combat you. Does anyone in this chat room personally own or know anyone that has a car that will never break down?
No, our cars will naturally break down.
Stop. Let me move forward with this. Knowing that every mechanical automobile we have will break down, would it be smarter for us to depend on a credit card to be there, or save a few percentage points of every dollar we make, so that when my car does break down, and it will break down, I can simply say, here's the cash I need to fix it?
So then if you say,
remember, emergencies are unplanned. You cannot tell me that you don't know your car will break down one day. So why aren't we saving for it?
That's why
sometimes it don't. Sometimes you don't know.
I don't think you should save for a
sometimes you don't know your car will break down.
Yeah, I don't think your credit card has to be for a particular.
Sometimes you don't. I'm just being real. Sometimes you don't.
Everyone in this room knows their car's gonna break down at some point.
Go ahead. What you say?
It can break down today. It can break down tomorrow.
Hold on one second. Let Randy Woman say something. She was talking. We were talking over it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, I can go?
Yeah.
No, you.
So I was going to say that if you're someone who don't use your credit cards a lot and your car breaks down, well, first of all, I believe in having at least $500 always for emergencies and for emergency car repairs because you just never know. But if you don't use your credit cards often and your car breaks down, then you can go ahead and use your credit card so that you can hurry up and you can pay it off. But it just helps to keep your credit score running and to help build that credit to keep it going.
Isn't credit like your belt? It's not your pants.
I'm sorry?
It's like an accessory. It's like your belt. It's not your pants. It's not gonna cover everything.
No.
Exactly.
Okay, so it may hold some things up. It may not fit all the time, and sometimes it may be too small, but you still use it, right?
Exactly.
You still may need. You carry it just in case. Your pants
But most people's credit card debt, if we're using the belt analogy, becomes a noose and it hangs them because they're overextended on their amount of credit.
They should have just got a belt. They just got a belt. They slapped the name on it. They should have just got a belt. Okay.
I think the solution is if your belt is hanging you is not to get another belt to help you lower yourself down. It's to stop using belt. You need to use suspenders.
Credit cards it makes people feel good as an ego thing because you can't run out of plastic. And I feel like in there's a new average. Just like selfie became a new average when it comes to lifestyle because now people pay ticket to background and everything. So camera phones are no longer used to talk. They're for quality of life now. They're not just for, I mean, it's harder to talk on a phone than it is to talk on Wi-Fi, right? A cell phone, you can't even just make a call anymore. Your phone does, the call option is the least option that can do. So I feel like if you feel like something else that has more weight than a piece of paper gives you confidence where you're going to change your lifestyle based off of that, then that's a discipline issue.
But
and that's most people's problem.
You just said it became average, right? You just said it became average. The average American will sink in debt. You just said.
No, I'm not comparing it to that. I'm saying the average American, when they have something new, tend to take it as a new lifestyle, and it doesn't have to be American. Okay. It doesn't even have to be American. The average person now tends to take new monetary items as a lifestyle, and they start, and I feel like they don't realize that it's still your name. It's still just a piece of plastic. It's not a whole act.
The problem with most credit cards is that it gives people the feeling that they can attain something at any time.
That they might not really be able to afford.
They may not be able to afford it, but they feel like they can attain it at any time because you have a limit that's 5,000, 15,000, 20,000. And in the back of your mind, you may go into a store and you may look at a TV and be like, oh, that TV will look good in my house. Or, oh, that stereo looks good in my house. And you know that, and this is where I can say the little boy or the little girl needs to be checked in your mind, where it says you do not have that $400, $500, $600 for that TV. You need to just wait and save up your regular cash for that TV because that's not important. Now, as far as what you said about the car, so I do keep about $400 or $500 waiting for a car, but then something else may happen where your transmission may go and it costs you like $3,000. So, and it's very possible. It does happen. So, at that time, you may have to put it on a credit card, but you make sure you pay off that credit card quickly. But this is what I think the problem with most people with credit cards. They get it and they get this feeling of I can attain anything at any time. And this is where this $20,000 limit or this $25,000 limit could get them in trouble because, they look at something and they may just be in the mall wandering around, but they look at something, they see it and say, well, this looks good. And they want it now. It could be a new pair of shoes. It could be something, that's completely you do not need. And I think this is the problem with most credit cards. Now, like I said, me personally, I normally just pay my bills and right away I pay it right away off. And I only do that just to get the points because I really just want the points so I can take my free travels. So that's what I'm using it for. Technically, that's all I'm using it for. And people, some people may agree with that, some people may not. But hey, I got some free trips out of it. So
I think that makes sense. That's just not the way that most people use their credit cards.
No, the average person does not use it like that.
Don't you think credit cards and social media got the same habit?
Minority of people that use them responsibly. I use my credit card and I have a specific one that I use for business, but I never have more credit card debt than I have cash on hand to immediately pay it off. I utilize my credit card simply as a way to categorize business expenses because the business that I work in is slightly it kind of covers a lot of different areas. So I just want to be able to make sure that I have a good record in accounting of that.
It's a great law. You don't even have to come up. It's a great law. Credit cards have the best login companies in the world outside of a porn website. So they have the best logging outside of a porn website. If you want to track something, when you talk about and receipts, those are going to be let's say business entities in those fields have great receipts.
And I think that also people often think of using credit cards in the sense of an emergency. However, we have to realize what happens anytime that someone has an emergency. It's a crisis. And when in a crisis, you're emotionally not centered. And that may not be the best time to use a way to pay something. If you have any other way to pay it, that's not something that almost looks like a limitless bucket to pay off those things. Because that money you still do owe. So I think it's important to not always just be like, well, there's a crisis, because sometimes what a lot of people do is, everyone's heard the old adage, use your credit card only for emergencies. Suddenly everything becomes an emergency. Like you're like, I got to get my hair done. That's an emergency. I got to get this out. That's an emergency. I have to do this. And before you know, it just stands. And that's what most people
I feel like that.
Yeah, I feel like that would go back to, pardon me, brother. I feel like that will go back to discipline. I feel like that will go back to the financial literacy piece and properly being educated.
But most people are poorly disciplined.
That's correct. That's correct, brother Mo. Because we can't control other people's energy. Of course, all we can do is put the information out there, and it's up to them to do what's necessary from there. But I would like to say that while we should be saving anyway, if we're utilizing the savings in conjunction with credit, I mean that's a tremendous recipe for success, because again, we're still able to highlight credit a lot, because at any time I'm able to put something on quote unquote layaway, so with this whole vehicle thing, we got 3K. Even if I have 3K in the bank and it's disposable, I don't have to use it right away. I'm able to say, okay, cool. I'll drop 15 on it for this transmission, but we'll go ahead and pull in the credit card. Boom, I drop 15 on the credit card. We'll deal with the rest of it next month. So I'm still able to keep cash at my disposal.
For some people, that's how credit card debt works. Before you know it, you're like, I'm going to pay it off. I'll get it caught up just before I know it. And then that time never, ever happens for most people. Also, I think we need to understand, the 6 people that are in this discussion are not average people, right? Everyone here is on a different level. This is if we're talking about would I take stock advice from Warren Buffett? No, because I'm not one of the richest people in the world. And I'm not one of the most disciplined people in the world. And that information, if you're giving information to the average person, it's not always something they can utilize in an effective way, because people just take the footnotes of ideas that they want. Our advice based on what I do in my life would not be always the same advice that I think is a good idea for another person.
No question. Those are the people. Pardon me, brother. I apologize.
As I stand here, like a Palestinian freedom fighter with a slingshot, throwing rocks at invading Israeli tanks, I'm going to keep this fight going. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you 3 tools that I would want. One, I don't know if many people know this, and I'm just going to show you this real quick. I wrote an article a while back called "How to Leave America 101: A Masterclass," and I also did a video on it. I don't know if people know this, but you can freeze your credit. My credit has been frozen for I don't know how long. You can actually go to the credit bureaus, freeze your credit, and no one under any circumstance can look at, run, check your credit is frozen in time. Okay, and this is a tool that I learned a long time ago as a financial professional. When you do this, not only does it stop credit card or identity theft, but it stops you from being able to do anything on it. I mean, I didn't have to have a negative experience with credit because I realized it's a tool designed to look like a friend that's going to bite me. But this is something that some people might want to look into if any of you are interested. Another tool that I want to give you guys is we use the word discipline, and we've been using the word discipline a lot here. The level of discipline that a person learns when they are paying for everything that they want up front with cash out of their own pocket is one of the tools that is unrivaled in my arsenal. That level of discipline is one of the reasons that me, having lived in 15 countries across 5 continents, requires less effort than it does for most people. That ability that I have to say, if I want it, I will either save for it or do without, has given me enormous leverage over people who have the, how would I put it? Well, I'll just be nice about it and say people who have credit. Does that make sense?
I agree with you, but I can think leverage is a personal choice. What you think is leverage?
But you guys are, but you're an anomaly. Like, you're totally an anomaly of like what most people can do and what most people are able to do. And so if we're talking about like advice for like people that are already doing quite well and making good money, that's very different than for the average person. The average person probably should not do a whole bunch of things with credit.
No, probably should not. And I mean, as far as, you know, that is, I think the main issue here is the discipline. Like, the average person just do not has the discipline. Like, most people don't travel. Most people think, well, traveling around the world or doing this, that, and the third is very expensive. Really, it's not. I tell people all the time, it's not expensive at all. And, you know, if you really think about it, but the main thing is most people don't want to do 2 things. They don't have the discipline, or they just do not have the patience to maybe do what they have to do to get there. Like,
and most people don't even have a passport. So like, let's even start like a little bit further back.
And what happened to going to school? And guess what? How about you check your resources? Don't just go with one fact. How about you get a couple of cited pages and a couple of books, and then you put a synopsis. Don't just call it a back eye because somebody else said it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people don't want to use the necessary discipline, I mean, come on, we're you know, we're all adults. Those are the people that are gonna talk about they're being preyed upon. Those are the people that are gonna say, "Oh, okay, it's made for the rich," and this, that, and the other. I think that it's important that, again, you know, people learn to chew the meat, spit out the bones. If people understand their circumstances, but however, with the social media, as we mentioned a minute ago, people want to try to keep up with the Joneses. If they can't exercise delayed gratification, they can't exercise discipline, then they need to just, you know, leave it alone. All we can do is put the information out there, you know. And in our respective fields, we probably all can look at ways to, quote unquote, get over. We probably could look at ways to sabotage things. We probably know in the back of our head, if I do this, you know, result in harming myself, but also having a you know, great financial reward. Yet still, we choose not to do it, right? And so people should use that same mentality when they're approaching credit and their finances. I guess because it doesn't have an immediate effect on their livelihood as it relates to being free. People may not look at it that same way, but I guess that's the way I step to it. It's like, for me, being in financial services, I understand that if I allow my credit to go to the wayside, people can cancel relationships with me. You know, Americo and all these other people may say, "Nah, I'm good. We're going to choose not to accept any deals from you." And I think people need to understand that it's the same way it can be criminal for me to go out here and, you know, perform an act of such that it's also criminal, quote unquote, for me to be out here using my funds irresponsibly.
Yeah. And for you, like, you're in a very different experience than most people because you're having your credit, and the way that you utilize it is part of how you make money. And for most people, it's not that way. For most people, their credit is just used to get that thing that they want that they can't afford right now. And like, there's just a background in psychology, like just how humans are kind of evolved and made. We're very, very bad at understanding long-term consequences for our actions. And that's exactly what credit cards prey upon. People are able to easily understand instant gratification. It just works naturally in nature. Getting that bird right now or that thing right now, and not thinking of like, I'm talking like as if you were a dog or like a predator or something like Neanderthal years ago or whatever. Getting that thing right now is useful for you to enhance whatever that thing is. But not thinking about the long-term consequences isn't something that fits into how human beings work and think of the world. We also are bad at estimating and understanding large numbers. And what people often think about, like if you talk about a car dealership, if you've ever been in sales, they'll always tell you this is how much it's a month. But what they won't talk to you about, this is the amount of money that you're going to be paying over the long term, which is what most people miss, and which is why credit is just so very dangerous and intoxicating. Because you're like, I'm only going to pay $100 a month. Well, you're also going to be paying that $100 for like 50, 60 years or something like that, which most people just don't get.
Well, what I would say then is when we talk about credit as far as people's, as far as people over the long term, I think that's a big part of it. You know, Brother RJ, you're right. You work with credit, and I understand what it's like. When I was a financial professional, my credit rating was important. I had some friends in the military whose credit rating was important. The trick is for the average person, their credit is something that they look at. It's something they may have to deal with eventually because it doesn't affect their everyday job. The problem is, if you can't afford it now, you won't be able to afford it then. So what I've seen happen, and again, you that while the trains go by. I don't know if that's if that's the trains going by.
No, it's no trains. It's just Columbia streets.
Okay, but here's what ends up happening. Even if people understand how to use credit, use it well, and use it correctly, what people don't understand is there's a phrase called "life happens." I've seen what happens when someone says, "In 3 months, I'm going to pay this off," but during that 3-month period, the car analogy happens. Now the car broke down and you've got to pay that other bill. Remember, most people don't have a huge margin between how much they earn, how much they save, how much their credit is. If one of that pH formula goes off kilter, it's over. And in America, it only takes one or two payment cycle before they're homeless or foodless. Most Americans don't know what it's like to say, well, I'm going to pay 10 or 20% of my income is going to go to pay that credit card down. But then what happens when the car breaks down? Oh, and at the same time, your company says, hey, guess what? We're instituting a wellness policy. Now, I'm giving you a real life example. We're doing a new wellness policy, and so now everyone's going to have 4 days of work and 3 days off instead of working 5 days a week. Well, what does that mean? Oh, no, your salary isn't going to change. It's just going to be paid for 4 days instead of 3. Now you got a real problem. Or the real trump card, what happens when you simply let go? Because I don't care who you are. Nobody's prepared to be fired. Even if you're financially stable with money in the bank, up here, nobody's prepared when their boss comes in and says, not your fault. We got taken over by a big company, and they're cutting your position because they already have somebody that does your job. When your boss comes in and says, hey, good news. I just sold the company to fill in the blank giant company. We're all going to get a bonus check of 2 months' salary, and you got to get a new job. I've seen this happen to people. Now, when you stack that with, you know, how they say bad things, this is superstition, which I don't believe in, but I'm giving you an analogy. When they say those bad things come in threes, when you're out by credit card debt and you got to repair your car and something weird happens at your job, that's a great recipe for I don't know how this happened. That's when you see those families who say, my wife and I both have 4-year university degrees. We don't know how we got underwater. We don't know what it's like when that kid comes to you and says, Mom, Dad, I've got a scholarship to go to the White House, and all you have to do is pay for the ticket. But because you had that credit card, you think, well, that's a great idea, until you realize if you couldn't afford the ticket before, you can't afford it on credit. These are things that people who sat across from me as my clients in the financial business would tell me about as they were crying. And they weren't stupid people. They were average Americans like the people watching right now. They were average people who got seduced by that. Credit is a tool. You can learn how to do these things. Don't worry. You're smarter than the average person. My freedom came from me, and I'm ranting, and I know it, but it's my show, so. My freedom came when I realized, right, as a man, there is nothing unique about me. Everything that I've succeeded at, physically, financially, emotionally, is because men smarter than I am. Men with more difficulty than I am did it and wrote books about it, and they said, "Why? If you just follow this game plan, you're not going to mess up." You know, people in the fitness industry, they always have people coming in saying, "I lose clients all the time because my clients, they want these newfangled exercises." If you want to get big, strong, and lose fat, it's not a unique exercise. It's not a unique way to do things. But nobody wants that. If you want financial success, it just comes down to if you can't afford it, you don't buy it.
Do you mind if I interject?
No, please, go ahead.
I feel like reading and writing is fundamental and talking is a utensil, so everything's about the conversation. So if you can't have the conversation, then you need to go back to the reading and writing. You need to go back to the board. Because reading and writing is fundamental. That's before you have the conversation. So if you want to have the conversation with negotiation, then you need to learn and pay attention to what you signed and you read and you wrote beforehand. And I feel like that's the problem. Nobody wants to take accountability, so they don't have any accounts.
We have what's called a strict father society in the United States, where we believe the people who got into financial trouble are morally corrupt, or they're just stupid because they didn't read. The reason these industries are as rich as they are is because they prey on our need to believe the other guy was lacking, but I'm smarter than him and I read all the details, without ever understanding the whole thing is a myth. The whole thing doesn't matter because the details don't matter, because every company can rewrite their credit card details at will. And that's the trick. They convince you that because you read it, it can't happen to you. But it can, because there are people who are smarter than any of us who the same trap have fallen into.
Well, I mean, also, I think the problem with America is that, for one, this is, I think a lot of people know it's a very materialistic society. So people, like the other guy said, people always want to keep up with the Joneses, and it's a very materialistic society. It's a very competitive society. So we always want to keep up with the Joneses. We always want to buy stuff that we really cannot afford. So
there's no such thing as average. So that's why I don't know why you keep saying average American. When you speak about the United States, there's no such thing as average anything.
Average is a statistical norm. I can pull up financial spreadsheets for days.
Yeah, there's averages.
When it comes to average and knowledge, no.
There's an average, there's a mean of knowledge. Like, your average person may have gotten this far in school. I just want to touch back on watching really quick. We always talk about people buying that boat or whatever that stupid thing is. The main reason why most people go to debt in the United States is in medical expenses. And as a person that's in the medical field, we realize that a big part of that happens from unforeseen circumstances, or perhaps some of them are habits, obviously, but those are the things that really break people. And those things you are going to have trouble seeing coming, because most people overestimate how healthy they are. And when that medical debt is due, that's what breaks people. That's why half the people are on GoFundMe, because for medical debt. So we always want to talk about, people are keeping up with the Joneses. Some people, and most people, go into debt partially because they're trying to not die. And so I think that fundamental thing about how America works that not a lot of people in other countries can really understand.
Well, not too many people have $10,000 on hand to pay a medical bill to keep them from dying. And it's not like you can tell the doctor, well, I'll pay that later, because the doctor said, well, I'm going to save your life. So, you need to pay it now. And most medical insurance don't cover everything, because the average deductible is about $4,000 or $5,000, and the average person do not have that. And I'll go back to what I said before, that's when possibly a credit card may be used for. That is an emergency. You're about to die.
Almost no. I think one of the most important things that not many people use is a health savings account. That's a very important thing and a very important tool to utilize that people do.
Tell them who you are and your authority, where your authority comes from, so they know that you're not just talking out of the side of your face.
Oh, okay. My first undergrad is in psychology, which I've had some experience in. And then also my second degree is as a nurse, and I'm working on my doctorate now. I also private contract through travel nursing, as well as have another company when we work through real estate and making sustainable housing.
And for those who don't know, for those who haven't seen it, there is a way back we did 2 Doctors, 1 Cure. And Mo came and talked on that. And I want everybody to get a chance to go back and take a look at that.
Thank you. But I just want people to realize that a lot of this stuff, we shouldn't always demonize people for trying to keep up with the Jones. I'm not saying, because a lot of people may think that's why, but just in my levels, and especially as I actually, that's why I have to leave in a little bit, because I'm getting ready for my next, because I do rural healthcare. A lot of these people are going into debt because they get sick and health insurance doesn't cover it. And, you can just look at the overall mortality rates of the United States, is that people are dying sooner. And our health insurance and our health coverage just really hasn't improved at all to be able to help those people. And that's a big reason we see so many people that are strained. And I may see a couple stories of people got laid off. But the most stories I see for people that are just in debt are that surprise cancer diagnosis, that ER visit, that you didn't read the fine print of the health insurance that was offered at your company because that was all that was offered. And now you owe a $3,000 medical debt. You got a flight for life? That's $4,000 or $5,000 in a pop. And then you're gonna be like, wait a second, can I drive in a car real quick just to, maybe I'll make it there, maybe I won't. Everybody's like, put me on that chopper so I don't die. And those are forced choices, which can really, really get us into trouble. And if you have that huge amount of credit liability, you get sick, you're in the hospital, you get more debt, and maybe you can't go right back to work. And the FMLAs and other options we have for people that have like a chronic illness for just a couple of weeks. You just need a couple of weeks off after a heart attack. They just don't have those options. And those debts just continue to mount, which is why like credit can just be really the tip of that iceberg that just can really become that huge problem for many, many people. I just want to be cognizant of that.
Well, let's do this.
True.
Let's do this. Mo, since you said you got to wrap up, and we got to start wrapping up. This is the order we're going to start saying goodbye and do our final comments. We're going to go Mo, Kyle, RJ, Imogen, and we're going to let Reigning Woman have the last word as we say goodbye, but you can take as long as you need to get the message that you think you need to hear people come from you across. Mo, I know you just got done talking, but take it away.
Oh, it was just a pleasure being here. Thank you as always for inviting me, Watt. I always like hearing different people's perspectives on credit and how they utilize it. And through the conversation, I actually have like a couple interesting ideas for how you guys utilize credit. I'm very appreciative of the learning I got. And thank you guys very much for having this little thing. I appreciate it.
All right, I would say thank you for having me.
Hey, peace, brother.
All right, I'd like to say thank you for having me. And I did learn some things here. And, hopefully I will go out and apply some of these things to my everyday life. So thank you for having me, sir. All right.
RJ?
Brother Wateef, I want to thank you for having me as always. I'm just glad to be on a panel with brothers and a sister who knows their stuff and are applying these things on their daily basis. Hate to sound heartless, but at the end of the day, I mean, we can't save everyone. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I don't want everyone saved or I'll be out of business. So, these so all these people,
wow.
all these people that are going through what they're going through.
Too, so
yeah. Keep messing your credit up, y'all. No, I'm just kidding. But
I do taxes. Y'all, that's another thing. People don't understand taxes can mess you up
exactly.
too.
Exactly, brother. Exactly. So no, I mean, as this is always, this has been beautiful, man. Like I said, I just love to see my people doing their thing. And I wish everyone on this panel nothing but the best and success in their individual endeavors. And hey, look, until next time, family. Peace be upon you all.
Imogen.
Hey, so I want to say that fear is a disease of the mind. So anything that you consider bad or you're in fear of, you probably should study detailedly the most so you can understand it, because it was created by something like yourself with a pen and paper for it to create either that fear or that power, depending on what side of the spectrum you're looking at it. So fear is a disease of the mind. I think you should just do more research on what you think you're more afraid of, because that's probably the best thing that you can use.
All right. And Sister Reigning Woman.
First of all, I want to thank you, Yusef, for allowing me to be on the panel again and to be among other mature, thinking men and women of quality content. And I want to encourage everyone to learn all that you can about credit responsibility. You owe it to yourself to have the advantages of that information. It's really about financial literacy and education. And there are rewards to having good credit. There's rewards to having a good credit score, but consequences for not. And the technology era that we're in, also, it's so important because you have a lot of companies now looking at your credit scores, but also to consider your responsibility as an employee. So you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your family, especially if you want to leave a legacy for your loved ones.
Wow.
Amen.
That's kind of knowledge. I appreciate all you always showing up. I appreciate that you all bring different ideas. I appreciate that you all bring different and diverse perspectives that I might not have been able to have alone. And talking to people who think differently are how I grow. It's how I grow. So I say that to say this. I hope all of you share this somewhere. I tagged a lot of you on Facebook. Be sure to share this, and I hope everybody has a great night and a great rest of the weekend wherever